Everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here with Andrew Vontz of the Choose the Hard Way podcast and newsletter, Substack. It's on Substack now. We are talking a little belated Milan San Remo chat, if I can remember that long ago. And then this spicy little stage race that's happening right now, Volta Catalunya, the stage race bold enough to say, what if there was no time trials? And then this is what reality would look like. As well as we have E3 today. This is we can't really talk about it because it will probably be done by the time most people are listening to this. But then we have Gent-Wevelgem on Sunday, and then stuff starts to get serious, Andrew. Then we're a week away from Flanders. But do you want to talk quickly about your Substack before we get going?
When we talk about things getting serious, as you know, Spencer, my passion for the French Demi Classics that happened this past week, we passed the peak of the season, in my opinion. Like, you watch them out there, like they put baby oil on a slip and slide in these small French towns. That's pretty much the apex of the entire cycling season. Hey, everybody, it's Andrew. Please follow me at HardwayPod on Instagram. More importantly, please go to alwaysthehardway.substack.com. If you can't remember that, well, you can find the link in my Instagram bio. That is where I have my Substack. I'm writing about cycling, Zen, and life. This week, Spencer, I don't know if you know this. I wrote about the time that I wrote a cover story for Spin magazine. It was what used to be called a print magazine. It's a cultural artifact you might see around from time to time. Yeah, but I wrote this cover story about these music artists you might have heard of, Daft Punk and Kanye West. And I write about that in my own experience, Spencer, spending 25 years working in obscurity to perfect my DJ skills to then have my first DJ gig last week.
Wait, that was your first gig?
That was my first gig ever, yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought you were like...
Yeah.
I thought you were at this was always, when I was in college, I'm forgetting the name of these crappy clubs in Lawrence, Kansas, but these guys would come in and DJ, they'd make like $150 a night. And I was like, yeah, that's the career.
Yeah.
Holy shit, the career. These guys are making so much money.
Yeah. I was doing it for love, not the money, Spencer. Wow. And I'm still doing it just for the love. But anyway, please subscribe, alwaysthehardway.substack.com. If you like it, please become a paid subscriber and you can support me in bringing you more podcasts and writing more. I also have an interview dropping. It might be out right now with Chase Work, the people's champion, the junkyard dog of gravel racing, about his mega Mid-South fastest known time for that 300-mile loop. There are a lot of interviews out there about it now. This one is mine. And I actually, Spencer, I got the first interview after he completed the Mega Mid-South. So he's super, he's fresh yet exhausted and looks like he's been through the ringer. So you can check that out over at Choose the Hard Way podcast. All right, let's do this.
On the French
let's dive right in.
French Demi Classics, I was talking to someone, Lance Armstrong, actually, yesterday. And he was like, yeah, I just don't think it's, the weather's changed to the point where it's not rain. It's not going to be rainy at Roubaix anymore because Tadej Pogačar is riding Paris-Roubaix, which is probably what we should be leading the show with.
All right, okay.
I was like, clearly you have not, sir, been watching the endless amount of rain at every French race that's happened so far this year. Oh, my God. They might be racing under like feet of water by the time Roubaix rolls around.
Yeah, it was wet out there this week, and it did have a big impact on the outcome of those races. And in fact, I was trying to find a list of everyone who wrecked at those races this week. I could probably just pull the start list because it seemed like everyone wrecked. But certainly some, we didn't have any big names eliminated in the sense that they're not going to be getting back on the bike this week. But it was pretty bananas. The thing that one of the things I wanted to talk to you about related to the French Demi Classics, Spencer, I have become a fan of the Unibet Rockets. And have you been following them at all the past couple of seasons?
I don't like this team.
Oh boy.
I don't know. I just it's all show. It's no go. We're a YouTube team. I don't know. Win me some races, but they did win, I guess. So I don't know what I'm complaining about. But they've got great jerseys. I'll give them that. I think they're gone after this year because they can't have Unibet as a sponsor any longer, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is one of the things that's funny to me about it. The the Paul brothers, I don't follow their careers very closely, but I am generally aware of the existence of Jake and Logan Paul. They had their docuseries come out this week. And I was thinking about, this is like the American version of what you do with YouTube. And in Europe, you use your status as a YouTuber to go start a cycling team to try to get to the world tour. So I kind of like that aspect of what these YouTubers have done with the Unibet Rockets team. I also like that they've called it the Rockets. It's been funny to listen to the race commentary this year, and frequently the people commentating on the races it's very quizzical. They're like, why is this team called the Rockets? It's like, well, it's making you talk about the team, right?
Well, unfortunately, they used to be called the TDT Unibet team, and then I guess they lost that. The Rockets would suggest that should be a sponsor, but they didn't have that. They couldn't fill that spot, so they filled it with a fun word, I guess. I mean,
well,
I'm trying to think of. Remember, like Leopard Trek? Like, what was Leopard?
Leopard,
did we ever figure that out?
Leopard was an actual. They were a company.
Could you buy their products? I don't think you could. I think it was just like a holding company or something.
All right. I don't know about that.
Investment vehicle.
I will say, though, there might be something to be said for a team having a name that persists over time, that you then tack on your 5 words presented by with to. Rockets is memorable. I know who the Rockets are. And they, of course, this week, they finally got a win with Lukas Kubic, the Slovakian national champion, which watching their YouTube series, I got the feeling it wasn't likely that Lukas was going to get a win, but he did this week.
Well, like what's crazy about this team? This is nuts. So one of the riders is
Lukas Kubic
from Slovakia, I believe.
Yeah, Slovakian national champion.
Sagan disciple. Odd Christian Eichen is on this team. So you think like, oh, this is a joke team. It's a YouTube team. This guy had the leader's jersey at the Volta, I believe, in 2021. I'm looking it up right now. Yeah. Like, that's a pretty good rider. Like, it's just crazy the level of these. It would be like I don't know, what's a team like this in the US? I guess like Legion or something. Like if Legion had guys that were as good as top American World Tour riders. But Andrew, before we move on from this, I think about this a lot. What is the point of a team like this? Because it's not cheap to run. Like, it's awesome that they won, but you're forever stuck in this spot. Like, you're never going to get invited to the biggest races. You're definitely never going to go to a Grand Tour. You're never going to go to the World Tour. It's not cheap to run. I often think about teams like this. Like, what are they doing in this middle ground? It's a bit of hell, actually. It's why I think Rally, Human, HGH, whatever they were called by the end, ended up folding.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a reverse Viking move going on here. And I would have the opposite view. So I think what they've done is they set out with the intention of getting to the World Tour. How do you do that when you don't have World Tour level talent? It's a bit of a paradox, yet they are going to make it so. I do think they may end up getting to the World Tour. And one of the interesting things they've done this year,
getting to the World Tour takes millions and millions and millions of euros, even just to function, to get to the races, to get to points. It's like in Boogie Nights where they're like, the magic is in the tapes. You got to give us, it's like the magic is in the points, but we can't afford the points. We can't afford to get to the races to score the points to get to the World Tour. That's my concern, where it's just, the getting points is such a money hungry endeavor that I just wonder about teams like this. How would you ever score enough points?
Well, when Lukas Kubic wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror, like Dirk Diggler, I think he says, I'm a star. I'm a star. I'm a great big shining star. And after a series of top 10 finishes this week at the Cholet Aglo Tour, he wins. He wins the sprint. So what they've done is they've developed a relationship with Flanders Classics, and you're actually going to see the Rockets at Paris-Roubaix. They just got a wild card, and the Tour of Flanders. And are they going to win? No. I think part of what I've found to be really interesting about them, and why I do think today they don't have the dollars, they don't have the points, they don't have the riders. I think in the next season or two, they actually will, because if you go watch their content and compare it to, say, UAE, Ineos, some of these other teams, these people actually know how to present their story in an interesting and compelling way. And you get to know the riders, their characters. They're not robots. Real is what works in the new media environment, in my view. And what doesn't work is robotic, canned, fake, or stuff where you're walling off the human side of these athletes from the public that you're trying to reach and influence. And I think that this Rockets model is what we're going to see in the future. And I think that these guys are really onto something. And I think they're going to deliver way more sponsor value than we're seeing with these other teams, where it's more or less an oligarch or a full oligarch who just is writing a check and has no expectation of getting anything back for their money. These people are making you care about the people on the team. They're making you care about the narratives that are happening within the team. And I think they're delivering big value. And I do think that in turn is going to lead to them leveraging up to bigger and bigger sponsors. And I think that we'll see them win perhaps a major classic within the next 3 years. You heard it here first.
Follow-up question to that.
All right.
XDS Carbon Works, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Instead of becoming the sponsor of the Astana team.
Yeah.
So Astana is going to get kicked out of the World Tour after this year. So they will be in the second division with.
We'll see what Vinokurov has to say about that. I don't know if you want to cross that guy. Yeah.
You don't want to. I don't know what to say too much. I've heard some stories. You don't want to cross that guy. We should.
I wouldn't. I'm being serious.
I'm dead serious. They don't mess around there. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But they owe someone I'm friends with a 7-figure sum, and they've invited that person to come get it in person, and that person's not going to come get it in person. Yeah. But the Unibet Rockets are going to be in the second division, likely with Astana next year. Would XDS have been better off? Like, let's just say you're a company like that. They're investing a lot of money in Astana. Would you be better off just investing that in a YouTube team like the Unibet Rockets? If you don't know the Unibet Rockets, really all you need to know is great YouTube presence, good jerseys.
Yeah, absolutely. Like XDS XDS is just a psyop anyway. It's sports washing. It's not about selling bikes. They didn't even have a bike.
Apparently they are the world's biggest bike seller.
They are. However, prior to having this World Tour, they're not. What are they? Pro Tour? What is Astana right now?
They're World Tour right now.
Okay. Astana's World Tour, prior to signing with Astana, if you had gone to the XDS website, as I did, Spencer, and went as deep as possible, what you would have found is, yes, they may be the world's biggest manufacturer of bikes. The bikes that they were selling, at least public-facing bikes, before coming on board with Astana, they were perhaps, the maximum price was like $1,200. They weren't selling premium products.
But they make like Trex bikes. Yes. And then now the plan is put Trek out of business because you've been making Trex products for so long. It's like, well, why does Trek exist?
Yeah.
Then have an expensive bike. Sell it.
You say that, yet we know the reality of the bikes, and this is what we're hearing from World Tour riders, not in public, but it's very clear. Even if XDS has a superior manufacturing capability, and even if they have been manufacturing some of the world's best bikes, the reality is we know that the bikes that they have delivered and given to their World Tour team this season, they're extremely heavy. They're not.
It's their first year. Give them time.
But Spencer, if they're already making, I don't know, like the top level Trek Madone or whatever,
but you
really like they wouldn't have the tech to do that.
You can't just like copy Trek, because Trek owns those molds so they're basically reverse engineering it. When you reverse engineer something, it does take you a few iterations to get it right. I wouldn't write them off. I mean, I would say, 2-3 years, like they could have a light, great bike. I mean,
yeah, I'm sure they will. Nonetheless, I think, would their money have been better spent with an insurgent program such as the Rockets with a great name? Yes, of course. I also, part of me wonders if Rockets is, a throwback, like echoing Katusha, which of course did manufacture actual rockets.
And clothing. Don't forget the clothing line.
Yeah,
People
totally.
sleep on the Katusha clothing line.
Very chic.
So moving on from the Rockets, Lance Sanremo, maybe one of the best, I don't know, 30 minutes we'll have in the last few years. And then Pogačar does not win, beaten by Mathieu van der Poel and Filip Pogana. I mean, we all knew this was coming. If as I said to Johan Bernal, if he is previewing the cobblestones, like, you would never spend your time doing that. It's such a waste of time unless you're racing the Roubaix. He's announced he's racing Paris-Roubaix, very unorthodox for a Tour de France contender. What are your thoughts on Sanremo? Should Pogačar retire? Is he washed? And then what do you think about him doing Roubaix?
I don't think there are any takes left on Pog at Sanremo. I agree with you. I think that this may have been the best 30 minutes of bike racing ever. Of course, visually, not that. I mean, it's beautiful, but it just didn't have the drama and the violence of Paris-Roubaix or some of the other classics or moments at the Tour. Nonetheless, man, it was like getting to watch, a thought experiment you've always wanted to see played out in real life actually happen. It's very easy to be, the Monday morning quarterback on this. The thought that I had as I was watching it, knowing that once Pog created the separation on the Cipressa, the small group got away, the small council, as we say in Game of Thrones. They're on the Poggio. I just didn't understand once the initial attack failed. I intellectually and conceptually understand that Pog thought, okay, if I soften up Mathieu, then eventually I'm going to get separation. And that's the same thing he's tried the last several years. So I wonder why he didn't wait for one massive attack that was more sustained to try to actually create that separation, or just wait and roll the dice so that he's a bit fresher, knowing that they might just end up in a sprint anyway.
Yeah. Obviously they have to stay away, because if they get caught, he's going to lose. He's not going to win. So he has to work until the Poggio.
But he didn't have to attack 5 times on the Poggio,
I guess. What if he drops him, though? I mean, he wasn't going to drop him. Knowing what we know now, like knowing what we saw at the top of the climb, he was not going to drop him. Van der Poel was flying. But also, if you think about it, deductive reasoning, if he doesn't drop him on the Cipressa, the harder climb, he's not going to drop him on the easier climb. And Van der Poel knows that. Why was he pulling after they dropped Ghana? Still don't understand that, like, hard pulls. He was pulling harder than Van der Poel to keep Ghana off the back. But what are you doing? You're going into a sprint with a faster sprinter, and then Ghana only helps him, because if Ghana comes up, it mucks things up. He could attack. Let's say Ghana's with him. He attacks. What's Van der Poel going to do? Is he really going to chase Pogačar? That's a tough position. Like, what if Ghana attacks? Then Pogačar can sit on Van der Poel and say, I'm willing to lose this race. Do you want to pull him back? And then maybe I just want Ghana to win this race. And then we're watching Filip Pogana solo away to win. But it's the one thing I didn't understand. A little too generous with the work there. I saw some people criticizing Van der Poel for pulling with him. This was during the race. Like, what's he doing? It's like, he knows he's going to lose if he goes. He's not going to beat Jonathan Milan in a sprint. Like, he's got to get to the line. This is a gift that Pogačar's given him. They've got to get to the line by themselves, and then he's almost guaranteed to win. Also, by the 3 of them, it was fantastic. We felt an absence, a disturbance in the force, did we not? Was there? You're watching that, you're thinking, someone's missing here. Something's missing. It's Wout van Aert. Was that kind of weird that he wasn't at the race?
Yeah, Wout could have actually been there. And then deeper in my heart was the desire, of course, to have Jonas and Remco there as well. I wanted the full clash of the Titans.
Jonas, he would have been like negative seconds off. He would have been so far off the back.
But you know what I mean? I want the ultimate. I want everybody in the Marvel universe, all of the Godzilla creatures fighting at once. Like, that's my ultimate cycling fantasy. Like, I want to see it happen, and I never get it.
Sanremo just got good. All right, well, let's give it a few more years. It just turned into slop, and it's like a rundown restaurant that's now a Michelin star tasty menu restaurant. And then Roubaix is like the Golden Corral, where, like, it's violent in there, it's messed up. You might not come out of that restaurant. It's weird that, like, Van der Poel worse sprinter than Van Aert. Do any of us think, listeners, you, me, that Van der Poel doesn't win that sprint against Van Aert, there's something like weird going on with Van Aert where he cannot win like 1v1 races against Van der Poel any longer.
I mean, I know if Wout shows up here on the bagel ride in Hope, Maine, he's getting dropped. Like, there's no doubt about it. But
he's racing today. He also, keep in mind, he might have just beaten Mathieu van der Poel.
Yeah,
today. I guess we should just prepare for that fact.
Yeah, I mean, nonetheless, you show up on my local ride, Wout, like you're getting dropped on the Moody Mountain Sprint, like no doubt about it. Something else that's notable that I don't think it's talked about enough with Milan-San Remo, I think, due to the metric system. So it's 298 kilometers for all the unbound fans out there. That's 185 miles. So I know there are a lot of questions about, could these World
Shorter
Tour
than
riders,
it used to be too.
Yeah, could these World Tour riders, could they hack it at Unbound? We've seen what's happened to Mohoric and some of the stars of the past that have shown up and flamed out in the storied muds of Emporia, Kansas. They rode a pretty long distance in Milan-San Remo and
almost 7 hours. Isn't that like the winning time at Unbound now? Or am I crazy?
Unbound's, I think winning times are between 9 and 10 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Man, that's a long race.
Yeah, it's a long, long time. And as we're talking about Pog and his decision making, I'm sure he did everything that he possibly thought made sense to do. I do want to say, though, that I thought that I had, if we recall, what is Pog's Achilles heel? In my opinion, I mean, his confidence, I don't think it's hubris, but I think his confidence and his instinct guide him at some of the moments when he does some of the most special things on the bike. And, you go back.
Like taking massive pulls with a guy 30 pounds heavier than you going into his sprint.
Right. But like you go back a few years and there have been moments when that's gotten him in a lot of trouble and he's lost races.
He could win. He could lose the tour this year because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's kind of like the flip side or the dark side of Pog's gift is sometimes impatience, or it was very, again, if we like go back 3 or 4 years, this is what Mathieu van der Poel used to do all the time. He would just be training in races and he would just like pull at times that have made no sense. So it's been interesting to see Van der Poel has really matured as a rider. And I think he measures the manner in which he's using his energy and when he really takes the gloves off and punches hard in a very mature way now. And I felt like Pog perhaps just didn't do that.
Well, I think you're forgetting too, like this is Pogačar's side job. Like Van der Poel's at the tour. You don't even register that he's there because he's like around. Probably has like a squirt gun in the back of the Peloton. Like Pogačar buckles in at some point, and then Van der Poel really bothers me. Like this guy races so little. I'm just looking at his race days. Like he races as much as like a dedicated masters would in a year with a job. So when he does race now, he is very serious about it. Like with these one-day races, like he does not waste chances, but it's because he has this mentality of like, I'm only going to show up if I'm really, really good and I'm probably going to win. And then I'm going to use the Tour de France for training, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
On Pogačar. One more note on San Remo. Also, Pogačar, it's always a viable strategy. I think people underrate this. How is he going to beat Van der Poel? How's he going to beat Van der Poel at San Remo? Just wait till he's not good. There will be a year when Mathieu van der Poel's not in shape at Milano-San Remo, and then you win that year. Like that's always the answer. It's like how's anyone going to beat Pogačar at the Tour? Well, he's going to be out of shape sometime, so beat him then. But Tom Pidcock dropped on the Cipressa.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like the finale was so exciting that he's gonna get away with this. The guy talked a lot of crap, right, for months before about I'm a superstar now. I'm on a team. I'm gonna win stage races. Then he gets sixth at Tirreno, dropped at San Remo. Like it's not very good. What's going on there?
I don't know. I have no idea. What do
He's
you
like,
think?
what do you call him? Like he's like the Bieber when Justin Bieber was like boxing. That's what I think about it. Also, I mean, his
a
team
bit
is
of a
just not
studio
very.
gangster, right? Yeah.
The team caught up with him at San Remo, I thought, because he's just poorly positioned, and then like you couldn't even see him at the front of that group, you know.
Yeah, I
And
don't. Yeah, I know that we both watched the Q36.5. They made some cute acronym for what Tom stands for, together or one more. I don't know what it was.
I didn't
But
know that. I did
yeah,
not.
yeah, that was the title of the video. It's like
No.
Tom. But I mean, to me, that's actually a great example of this synthetic, like robo content. It's like, and Tom's talking about like, for the first time in my career, like I have good equipment, blah blah blah. It's like, come on, man. I know Ineos, their high performance program went downhill a bit. Like, does Q36.5 really have a superior high
Well,
performance
yeah, and you
staff?
won 2 Olympic gold medals on
Yeah,
Pinarello
like
mountain bikes.
yeah,
They're pretty good.
Pinarello has like okay equipment, and I don't think it's tough to say this because Ineos has gone way downhill, and I think their version of way downhill put them at maybe 4th or 5th in the world tour in terms of their overall high performance program and performance engineering that they had within the team. So it's a bit hard for me to.
I mean, they're currently 3rd in the world tour.
Yeah, it's a bit hard for me to take these spurious claims seriously. And then just like all the churn around, I'm a Grand Tour rider. I'm gonna win stage races. No, I'm here to do. It's like Bieber's just dancing everywhere. Like, what week is it? What genre is this guy on right now? This could as we go into things like Amstel Gold and some of these other races. I'm excited. Like Tom loves to put on a performance. It's like, just like Ben Healy and similar riders, like we'll see potentially a win, but I expect more.
Man, I almost feel like Ben Healy though. You say that, you're like, does Tom like to put on a performance? I mean, how often do you see him off the front of big races like Ben Healy?
I mean, it's like, let's look at, on the road perhaps, but like, let's look at the Olympic mountain bike race. I mean, come on, it doesn't get much better than that ride. That's one of my favorite races I've ever seen by far.
True. All right. So I peek behind the curtain. I do this podcast in between morning calls with Europe in very early in the morning. So we got to rip through this. Another rider who is impressive.
What a flex.
Yeah, what a flex that I live in the world's worst time zone for my career. Awesome. Great idea. But yeah, I know people on the other side of the Atlantic, which we will be at war with soon.
Yeah.
But another young rider that's doing really well, unlike Mr. Tom Pidcock, Juan Ayuso at Volta Catalunya. This is an amazing race. And I'm going to out myself here as a casual on Catalunya. I guess it never has a time trial. I was shocked. I was like, oh, I'll go through certainly it's going to break up when we get to the time trial because Juan Ayuso and Primož Roglič are like neck and neck at this race. Also, last year, this race was won by Tadej Pogačar. Year before, Primož Roglič. Pretty good. This is super weird. 2022, Sergio Higuita wins. Richard Carapaz second. That feels like if you would have told me that result was a decade ago, I would have believed you. Like, how does 2022 feel that long ago? Adam Yates, Richie Porte 1-2 in 2021. Oh my Lord. But these guys, there's been 2 summit finishes. The first one, but they both are sprints, like bike throw sprints. Juan Ayuso wins the first one. Primož Roglič kind of messed up. He threw too late. He was moving pretty fast to the line. And then yesterday, he gets to the end. It kind of flattens out at the end. He's stuck on the front, real tricky position because Ayuso attacks from further out. Smart move because he thinks he might drop Primož, doesn't want to take Primož to the line. They're like being closed down by the group. He doesn't, like Enric Mas is coming, like good GC rider, doesn't want to get caught. So he's keeping it fast at the front. Ayuso's behind him, and then he just wins the sprint anyway, leading it out for himself. Primož, I think he made up like 6 seconds in bonus seconds, so now they're tied on time going into stage 5 is today, and then 6, 7 over the weekend. Stage 7 is like a 45-mile circuit race in Barcelona with multiple climbs. Like, that's going to be electric. But this is going to come down to time bonuses between Ayuso and Roglič. Super impressive for Juan Ayuso. I'd say maybe even more impressive for Primož Roglič, because if you remember, if you're saying, wow, this sounds familiar, at 2023, Remco Evenepoel, Joao Almeida rolled up to this race like, we're the future. We're cycling's GC future. Primož said, not so fast. I'm just going to slap both of you down. And I believe in that race, too, he had early losses on the uphill finishes. And then by the end, this was the year, if you remember, Remco just screaming obscenities at him on the streets of Barcelona because he wouldn't pull through to help him win. As the Hasidic Jew says in episode 4, season 1 of The Sopranos, well, my people stood up to the Romans, and where are they now? And then Tony says, they're standing right in front of you. It's kind of like that, where it's like, well, where is Remco Evenepoel now? He's at home. He's not here. He was defeated by Primož Roglič. And now Primo's just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep taking on like the new stars of the sport and humbling them. Here's the big problem, though, Andrew. This is exciting. This is all great. As I'm watching this, I'm thinking, man, both these guys would be a minute behind Tadej Pogačar on these uphill finishes. Like, at the end of the day, the extinction level event has happened, and I don't think either of them can keep up with the top GC riders, and it just makes me wonder. And they're both going to the Giro, so the Giro, as long as they stay healthy, should be great. Outside of that, it kind of makes me wonder about like where they now fit into the larger GC ecosystem.
All right. I think if anybody listened to that closely, what you're hearing is obfuscation from Spencer. He's trying to escape the gravity of my breathtaking insight last week. That
you said Juan Ayuso was going to win the Tour de France this year. He's currently second overall at the Volta Catalunya.
I didn't say he was going to win the Tour. I think what's going to, okay, so here's my reading of this. I think you're right. Roglič, Ayuso, where do they fit in a Pog and Jonas-dominated landscape? That's a good question. I have a couple of thoughts. So on stage 3, we see Ayuso out Roglič. And the thought that I had in that moment was, wow, like Roglič looking like the 10-man after a day outside in March in Odessa, Kansas in a downpour. He's looking a bit rusty is what I thought. It's like, man, this guy's lost the snap. That's a purpose-built Primož finish. It's that uphill sprint after a brutal climb. That's where he's at his very best. It's like every year in the spring, we just see him like a wind-up doll, winning these stages over and over. Okay, now we have the apprentice outshining the master. Juan Ayuso just dancing on those 150 millimeter cranks.
I hope he's not the apprentice to Primož. There's better people to be an apprentice to. Why? There's people that don't crash all the time.
Yeah, though the mountains may fall and the hills turn to dust, Juan Ayuso will continue to rise. All right, then on the next stage, stage 4, Roglič is back. And not just back, looking boyish, looking sassy. And right?
Boyish. He did kind of look boyish.
Right? And that, because like part of me was like, man, on watching stage 3, I'm going to have to look this up. Primož, he's definitely over 30,
he's
right?
35.
He's 35. Yeah, he's up there in the years. Like he's almost Alejandro Valverde at this point. He's ready to go to the Gravel World Tour and start winning those Masters events. You might see him at your local crit. Watch out. Right? So I'm like, okay, Roglič is perhaps cooked. And then I started to panic a bit because, Spencer, the passion I have for the telemark. I don't like seeing anything on the podium more than Primož going down to on one knee as an homage to his storied ski jumping past. Perhaps the most famous ski jumper in popular culture, barring Eddie the Eagle Edwards, Great Britain's Olympic ski jumper.
You know that.
Yeah. But then, I was like, man, this guy's washed. Like, where does he go from here? The Bora Hansgrohe Red Bull program is built around him. Like, I just like, it was an existential depression that overcame me, this cloud of darkness. Then we get to stage 4 and he just totally smokes Ayuso. The thought that I had after that, this might be as good as it gets for Primož. I think you're right. At the Tour, I mean, come on. We're not like, it's just not going to happen. And as it relates to Ayuso, the thought that I had, and it's painful for me to admit that you might be right, that Ayuso may potentially not win the Tour.
Not win the Tour this year.
This year,
as tough as that is to swallow for.
Well, I mean, hey, I don't know if who's going to become the team leader if Pog has an incident. That's all I'm saying.
I would. Well,
But before we go there,
these guys are racing at the Giro. So if you think that Primoz, this is the high point, then I guess that means he isn't winning the Giro, which he's displayed an odd ability to do.
Yeah,
recently.
he does have an odd ability to win. But with Ayuso, I'm thinking, okay, like let's do some remote viewing. What does the future look like for this guy? He's not going to stay at UAE. Like he's a problem rider within the team. So where does he go? I don't see him, based on what we've seen the last couple of years. This doesn't seem like the guy you want in a support role.
Just to give background on this, he's not allowed to race at the Tour anymore because last year on stage 4, he was hiding at the back. He didn't want to pull and drop himself. And Pogačar went back and told him, "Get your fat ass to the front." That's a quote. "Get your fat ass to the front." And he had to pull, and then he left the race midway through. And I went to the team bus after that stage, and it was tense. Let me tell you, tense. Yeah. And then the moment he left the race, it was like 180 in terms of mood around that team bus. Yeah. So you won't see him at the Tour anytime Pogačar's healthy. I mean, I guess if Pogačar crashes at Roubaix, I still think it doesn't matter. It's whatever. They could have your cat leading the team because without Pogačar, that team is rudderless. My Lord, they would all get lost halfway through the Tour. But the future, I think you're looking at the future. I think Juan Ayuso's got to go to Red Bull. Isn't that the team?
Wow.
We're looking at guys battle that are going to be teammates in a year's time.
Okay, that's an interesting twist. Where my mind went is this is the future leader of FDG, Cofidis, right? I'm like, it makes sense. It's like this guy goes to a French team. That's what I think.
I mean, actually, I heard a funny thing about those teams. I don't know how much I can share about this, but they're all run. There's one guy, I won't say his name. He controls every French financial services, state-sponsored financial services company. And he likes cycling, and that's why those teams exist. And then, if he retires, do those teams cease to exist? Just something to...
Well, this goes back to my theory about why the Rockets may have the winning model for the future. But that advice, of course, if the Rockets are listening, number one, would love to interview you all. Number two, 25% tariff on that advice going your way.
Just a VAT tax, not a tariff. But yeah, oh man, that would be bad if he ended up at... I mean, but you're not far off though. I mean, what if he was at Movistar? Is that not just the Cofidis of Spain? That would be the obvious fit. You're like, well, he's going to have to leave and go to Movistar, but you just can't. Some people do well there. And by some people, I mean Alejandro Valverde. And then this army of people that are named Ivan Romero or Ivan Romero or Ivan Romo. They seem to have an endless supply of 21-year-olds with some permutation of that name that are doing amazing. But here's what we I can't get Mathieu Jorgensen out of my head. It's like, who's to say those guys don't switch teams and then they're Tour de France contenders? Is everyone just underachieving on that team? I think Ayuso's got to go to one of, if he wants to win big races, Red Bull. Because if you've not noticed, only 3 teams win bike races anymore. He's got to go to Red Bull. I guess UAE. He's already on UAE, or Visma. I mean, or Alpecin. But that's not. They win races, but they don't win the type of races he wants to win. It's just a limited pool where he can go.
Yeah, I just see a future where Marc Matteo is yelling at him. I don't know.
And he's to get 5th place, but he's making 7 million euros a year. That would be the ultimate FDJ move. Yeah.
So that's also, Spencer, just for your situational awareness, while we were talking about Movistar, I had this thought of, is Nairo Quintana still in the World Tour?
He's at this race.
He is. Yeah. He's at this race. And you know what's wild is Quintana, in my brain, I'm like, man, this guy's been in the World Tour since 1997. He's the same age as Primož Roglič. I don't know what. Well, I guess Primož came into the sport later, so that's why.
Well, I don't know. This is public information now, but I want to make sure. I don't know if I have the facts exactly right, but Nairo, if you remember, he had to take a year off. He had a gap year.
Yeah, he had a timeout.
That's because he brought a doctor to Arkea, requested this doctor. Arkea's hotels were rated, I believe, it was either the 2021 or 2022 Tour de France. this doctor had machines for withdrawing and inserting or materials that you could take out and insert blood with. You're not allowed to have those materials at races, and they had Nairo's blood in them. So
targeted individual.
Take what you will from that information. Does not look that great for Nairo, and if it makes me think, actually, going back to, like, remember, it'd be like, he's always so good in the third week. You're like, well, okay, this kind of makes sense now.
I mean,
he's getting a boost on stage 20.
Maybe it was Nairo's Innie getting that treatment and not his Audi.
I can't wait for, that's going to be the next, like, wave of legal tactics. Like, that was my Innie. That wasn't me. And that's its own person. Innies are not people. That's my stance. I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's controversial, but I'm not an Innie rights person. You will not see me at any. I don't care for the Innies, to be frank. What do they get them out of there? But I work for Lumen. I hate to break the news here anymore. Also, we should mention Kip mentioned this. I hate to admit, Kip knew this before I did. Mathieu Riccatello is 7th overall at this race, 45 seconds behind Primož Roglič. Very good ride from Mathieu so far.
Oh man, I'm spacing out. Who is the young person from Colorado that we interviewed on this show that won a semi-classic?
Riley
Sheehan. Yeah, where's Riley?
Riley is probably doing E3 today.
Okay, Riley's doing E3 while Spencer is looking that up. I'm going to throw out another thread here. We briefly saw Sepp Kuss in a breakaway looking like he might win a stage, and that did not work out. Is GC Kuss back? And another interesting fact, I didn't realize this. It makes sense because Sepp has been in a supporting role for most of his career. Only
4 minutes down currently.
He's about to win. GC Kuss is back. Sepp only has 11 victories in his professional career. But you think about, like, what are those wins? We have a tour stage, Vuelta stage, I believe. He's also, I think, won a stage at the Giro. So he has a stage at every Grand Tour, and he won the Vuelta overall. So I would say of his wins, they're pretty high quality.
Very high quality. It's funny. Did you hack my phone call with Lance Armstrong yesterday? But we were talking about Sepp Kuss. Not really. The GC Kuss was always a mirage. Like, I don't believe he's ever finished top 10 in a 1-week World Tour stage race. But because Sepp has high highs and low lows, which is great for these big wins, great for domestique work, not great for being a full-time GC rider. So he's 30 years old. I hope we will see him embrace his domestique identity, domestique/stage poacher identity, and he will have a long career ahead of him of working for Mathieu Jorgensen as he wins 9 straight Tour de France's. I hope. But here, just to leave you with a fact before we go about what's going on in pro cycling right now. But Roglič and Ayuso tied on time at Volta Catalunya will probably go down to time bonuses in Barcelona. Last year at this race, Tadej Pogačar won the GC by nearly 4 minutes. So just telling you, like, the gap between the best and the rest right now in GC riding. And he beat Mikel Landa, Egan Bernal, Alexander Vlasov, Enric Mas. Those are, like, some of the best GC riders in the world by minutes on the same course. So that's what we're looking at right now. I mean, what did Roglič say before the season? He's like, my goal or my plan to win races is to do races where Tadej Pogačar is not present.
That sounds like a good strategy. We didn't talk about this, and I know that the children are about to wake up and the day is about to kick into full gear with calls in Europe. Spencer, any comments or thoughts on potential second and third order implications of Jonas's now disclosed concussion?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's not good, right? I mean, it's like
definitely not good.
Anytime you're sidelined this time of year and you're a tour contender, it doesn't bode well for your tour chances.
Also, we do have the concussion protocol now. Ostensibly, we have this concussion protocol in World Tour cycling. Jonas being the most expensive asset on the Jumbo team, and knowing that they do take rider health and mental health seriously, why was he put back on a bike in that race?
Well, I guess if you think about what are their interface points, so you crash. It's like think about Pogačar. He crashes. Who does he even interface with there? It's like the mechanic. It's like I don't know what the answer is. You almost have to like stop it so they could be not stop it, but like somehow then get them back to the race because they need to be seen by a doctor.
Right.
I mean, would Pogačar have had a concussion? I don't know. It's not clear to me. He did hit his head pretty hard. But if you think about the Jonas one is weird because that was earlier in the race. Things were slower. And then he must have said he was dizzy. Maybe he didn't say he was dizzy until after the race, but probably shouldn't have been continuing at Paris-Nice. It does seem a little strange, especially if they knew he had hit his head, but they might not know. I mean, I think that's where it gets hard. Like, do you know? Do you know how he feels? Who's he talked to? The mechanic? I mean, I think we talked about this recently, but the Tom Squeens examples, the most glaring example of he should not have been given a bike, but that he was above and beyond what you would, like a cat would be able to diagnose him with a concussion at that point. Maybe Jonas, it wasn't clear. And if he says, give me the bike and you're a mechanic making 60,000 euros a year and your boss basically says, give me a bike, like, what are you going to do? Not give him a bike? That's just a strange power dynamic they have there.
Right. I just checked the E3 live tracker. We have like a drone hopper break. It's not fair to me because Jasper Stuyven and Tim de Klerk are in this. Oh man,
pretty good break there.
And Taco Vanderhorn. All right, that's a pretty good breakaway. This is not.
But Vanderpool is 3 minutes off the back of the peloton.
So, but Vanderpool is 3 minutes back with Wout and Ghana.
Whoa! And we can't watch any of this because it's not on TV right now. Fantastic,
amazing. Yeah, we'll get like
it's on in 2 minutes.
Oh, beautiful. All right, Gent Wevelgem. Do you have a pick?
I don't even know I should know who's doing it. I don't know is Mads Pedersen doing it? Because if he is, that's my pick. Let me see.
Maybe I don't think
doing it.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about this. We'll save this for next week. I want to talk about Mads getting shafted and not getting to ride the Tour. But I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
We've got months to talk about this, but yeah, it's kind of weird actually. I do think Mads wins. Gent Wevelgem. That's my pick. Do you have a pick?
Well, I can't get a start
Jasper
list.
Philipsen, Biniam Girmay, Jonathan
okay.
Timmerlier.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep saying Biniam Girmay until he wins.
That could happen.
Yeah,
could happen. Good race.
I'm going with Biniam Girmay.
I think he won. This was his first big win in 2022.
Yeah. Final question for you, Spencer, before you go. And if you're listening, please go to alwaysthehardway.substack.com and subscribe to my newsletter. Do we see Alaphilippe win anything major this year?
No.
All right.
I think this is like the retirement contract has been activated.
He's just a tutor for the watch. He wanted to complete his watch collection.
Yeah, you'll see him do some like work on the front, and people are like, "Whoa, he's working for Mark Hershey." But I think the winning is over.
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, I think that.
Remember when Greg Van Avermaet was retiring for like 5 years?
He's still retiring. He now has a full gravel squad, and they ride as a team. They're out there contesting against Alejandro Valverde
with gold bikes.
Yeah, gold bikes, gold helmets, gold chains.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew, and we will be back. It's getting serious next week, and we have a title sponsor in April, so we have to be back next week. We will talk to you all about